In this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 Pokémon from the Johto region in Pokémon GO. Now, out of all of the different regions, the Johto region probably has some of the best Pokémon you could use in the Go Battle League. There are also a handful that are phenomenal for gym battles and raid battles as well. Some of these Pokemon are even future-proof, meaning no matter what Pokemon are released in the future, these will still remain near the top of the list. Alright, so with all that said, let's get right into it. Number 10. Heracross. This regional Pokemon is actually quite good for the Ultra League. What many players don't realize is that Heracross actually wins out in a ton of matchups and can be a meta breaker. While it can have quite a lot of different counters, it is also relatively an effective dark horse, because not a lot of players will know how to go up against it. Heracross also has a very decent move pool as well, making it an absolute menace in the Ultra League. It can deal a lot of damage, while also draining out your opponent's shields as well. The other nice thing about Heracross is that it is one of the more uncommon regionals currently in the game, thus can be considered a collector's item, especially its shiny form. These are definitely the qualities that make it one of the top Johto region Pokemon currently in the game. Number 9. Umbreon. This Dark-type Pokemon is one of two EV evolutions that were introduced in the Johto region, the other of course being Espeon. Now between the two, the argument can be made that Umbreon is by far the most useful, mainly because of its significance in the Go Battle League. This is, of course, because Umbreon has much lower base stats compared to the other EV evolutions, but a pretty high defense stat. What this ultimately culminates to is a max CP that is pretty close to the 1500 limit for the Great League. This gives Umbreon users a strong advantage. On top of its phenomenal PvP stats, Umbreon also sports a very versatile moveset as well. Since EV received 2 community days, there are 2 community day moves you can choose from when it comes to Umbreon, and both of them are viable. This includes the normal type attack Last Resort, or the psychic type attack Psychic. Pair either of these with Snarl and Foul Play, and you got yourself one of the top meta picks with a lot of type coverage in the Great League. Not only that, completely maxing out a 100% IV Umbreon with XL Candy and giving it the Best Buddy bonus will yield a phenomenal Ultra League Pokemon as well. Since plenty of Ultra League meta Pokemon struggle against Umbreon's types and moves, this is well worth the time investment necessary to pull it off. Number 8. Blissey. The Johto region is home to probably the absolute best gym defender Pokemon in the game, and that is of course going to be Blissey. If you are looking to max out on your daily free Poké coins that you get from defending gyms, then you absolutely need to make sure you have an army of these tanks ready to go. The nice thing about this Pokemon is that it is not as difficult to get compared to before, as Chansey is a common Pokemon you will see in the wild through several events. On top of that, getting Happiny, which is the baby version of this Pokemon, is a common hatch from regular 5km eggs and special 7km eggs. If you still don't have this Pokemon for your gym defense, then you absolutely need to prioritize getting one. Number 7. Scizor. This Steel and Bug-type Pokemon is one of the most iconic additions to the Johto region. Ever since Pokémon Gold and Silver were originally released for the Game Boy, Scizor was hyped up as the face of cross-region evolutions. That hype is not misplaced, however, because Scizor is a very strong Pokémon for the Go Battle League. Aside from fire types, Scizor will have very few Pokémon that will be strong against it, especially in the Ultra League where it shines the most. This is because, of course, Scizor has one of the most complementary and unique type combos of Steel and Bug. Unless you have a pure fire type on your team, you are certainly likely to struggle against this Pokemon. Thus, having one in your collection could certainly help you get ahead in the Go Battle League. Number 6. Lugia. We finally get our first legendary Pokemon on this list. Lugia is an iconic Pokemon for several reasons. one of those being that this Pokemon has some of the most reliable movesets and stats in the game. Now Lugia will get edged out by other Pokemon when it comes to the Ultra League and Raid battles, but it can be a staple Pokemon you could use in the Master League. Lugia is also a phenomenal second option for raid battles if you lack a decent amount of Psychic or Flying types in your collection. Lugia's stats are much higher on the defensive end, making this one of the most tankiest Pokemon you can get. It can prove to be a very strong anchor in a Master League team or a raid team that is useful against Pokemon that are weak against Psychic or Flying. One important note regarding Lugia is of course the fact that not a lot of strong Flying types exist currently in Pokémon GO. This means that if you were to have a strong Lugia with Flying type moves, this will set you up for success against raid bosses that are weak against Flying. Lugia also was one of the first legendary shiny Pokemon that was released in Pokémon GO, giving it a lot of collection value. This truly is one of the essential staples of Pokémon GO. Number 5. Raikou. This legendary Pokemon is probably one of the strongest among the legendary beasts, and in general, one of the strongest among all of the Johto Region Pokemon. Now there are plenty of stronger electric types that have been released since Raikou made its debut, but you still do not want to sleep on this Pokemon. This is of course because Raikou has some insanely great stats for raid battles, and it has some of the best electric type attacks you can have on an electric type Pokemon. Even though I have myself a Zekrom and plenty of other electric types that technically outclass Raikou, this is still probably one of my most used legendaries in my collection. It can have both Wild Charge and Shadow Ball, giving it a ton of type coverage. This could be extremely useful in raid battles, but also for attacking gyms and Team Go Rocket as well. Number 4. Kingdra. Like Umbreon, this Pokemon is an absolute monster in the Go Battle League. Kingdra is the quintessential PvP Pokemon by its design. It may not be a great Pokemon for raids or gyms, but it has all of the tools necessary to be a powerful Ultra League and even Great League Pokemon. It has the strong type combination of Water and Dragon, which counters several meta Pokemon and resists a lot of common picks. It is also probably one of the most balanced Pokemon you can bring to the Ultra League. Kingdra has a high amount of defense stats, but it has very strong moves like Octazooka and Outrage that would also make it a strong attacker. Most players who run this Pokemon in the Go Battle League typically have a ton of great success, and if you want to get ahead in the Go Battle League, you should consider using this Pokemon yourself. Number 3. Azumarill. Now if it wasn't for the Go Battle League, this Water and Fairy type Pokemon probably would have fallen into obscurity. Within the Great League, which is of course the most commonly played mode of the Go Battle League, this Pokemon is the one Pokemon that you will probably see the most. This is because Azumarill is one of the most versatile Pokemon in the game, and it can fit in with pretty much every team comp. The long list of strengths of this Pokemon include its stats, moves, and typing. Considering that quite a lot of Flying types, Fighting types, and Ground types are all over the Great League, Azumarill can be your one-stop solution to some of the toughest opponents. Probably the biggest highlight of this Pokemon is its moves. Azumarill has probably the best type coverage in the Great League, with moves like Hydro Pump, Dazzling Gleam, and Ice Beam all within its arsenal. You can run any combination of these charge attacks and be effective in the Great League. Needless to say, this is one of the best additions to Pokémon GO from the Johto region. Number 2. Skarmory. Now if there is any particular Pokemon that would be slightly better than Azumarill in the Great League, it has got to be the Flying and Steel type Pokemon Skarmory. This Pokemon is a very powerful and unfair Pokemon to have, as it has some of the hardest hitting moves, as well as stats that make it extremely tanky. Skarmory has very few counters, as the Steel and Flying type complement each other really well. For any Pokemon that is strong against Flying types, they get countered by Steel types, and vice versa. Even if you bring a strong counter to this specific Pokemon, you will still want to hope you have shields available. This is because Skarmory is one of the few viable Great League Pokemon that has the Charge Attack Brave Bird. This move is extremely dangerous, even if your Pokemon is resistant to flying types. Without question, this is one of the top tier Pokemon you can get from the Johto region. Number 1. Tyranitar. Finally, we arrive here to the number 1 Johto region Pokemon, and it should be no surprise to anyone. Tyranitar is one of the strongest Pokemon currently in the game, and it is an iconic member of the Johto region. On top of having some of the highest stats in the game, this Pokemon can be used as one of the best Dark types or one of the best Rock types. Tyranitar absolutely thrives in raid battles, as it has a very high defense stat, but also a lot of offensive capabilities as well. This is because it has a decently high attack stat, and it also has some very powerful charge attacks. When it comes to Rock types, it has the very powerful charge attack Stone Edge, as well as the Community Day move Smackdown. With Dark types, it is commonly considered one of the best you can bring, as it has Bite and Crunch. Very few Pokemon outclass Tyranitar when it comes to raid damage, and the ones that do are typically pretty difficult to get. Thus, if you're looking for a very powerful Pokemon for a variety of raids, Tyranitar is going to be your best bet. Let me end this note by also mentioning that Tyranitar is one of the few Pokemon from the Johto region that has a Mega Evolution. This increases its value exponentially, as its high stats makes it one of the best Mega Evolutions. Once it is released, expect this Pokemon to be an absolute must for raid battles. Alright, that concludes my top 10 list of Johto region Pokemon in Pokémon GO. Now, among all of the regions outside of the Kanto region, Johto doesn't have too many Pokemon, but there are certainly plenty of Johto region Pokemon that are going to be strong in a variety of different situations. So if there is a particular Pokemon that you feel should have been on this list, be sure to mention it down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if it's your first time here, and I am Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I will catch you all later.